Hello, Podsmashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer.
Ooh, mine's a little fizzy.
We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
You are Penguin. I am Termite, and we messed that up again. Our names are both Dan. We're two audio voices in your ears, and we wanted to distinguish our names with our voices for you. We are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about over video games and a beer. So
that's right. So
tonight we have a heavy-ish topic to talk about.
We are. Yeah, so we are responding to a lot of the recent happenings in video game industry and culture. I know that last week I said we were doing a developer profile on Sucker Punch in honor of Ghost of Tsushima. But because of this stuff is happening kind of right now, we decided we want to talk about this instead because it's relevant and get it out to you guys relatively as soon as possible. It should still be relevant by the time this comes out. It's relevant all the time because tonight we're talking about sexism in the gaming industry and the budding Me Too movement and how it is changing the gaming industry. So, by way of disclaimer, right off the top of the episode, we'll be up front and say that this episode will be we'll be pulling quotes and we'll be talking about issues that are sensitive to young ears. And if you are listening with your kids, either now or in the future, this might be an episode you want to skip and go on to our next one or listen to one of our previous ones if you haven't. That is, it should be family friendly up to our main topic. We'll be discussing our typical news, our typical banter, our favorite things in DLC. Will all be family friendly, but the main topic itself is referring to we will be talking about sensitive issues. So if you want to skip this one, we totally understand and encourage that.
But stick around for our DLC and our favorite things because those will still be family friendly. So you can get at least a half an episode in and our new segment too. That's going to be family friendly. So if you just want to wait, we will warn you before we transition into our actual topic. So you'll know when to bounce.
Yep. So we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So tonight we are drinking the same beer for the first time in a long time, but we're not still in person. So don't make that think that we're staring at each other longingly into each other's eyes. We are still remote, but we just happened to have a hangout recently, and I brought some beer and left some of it with him and took some of it for myself, which resulted in us drinking the same one tonight. So why don't you do the honors?
Sure. This is called Mama's Little Yellow Pills by Oscar Blues Brewery, and it is, quote, a Bohemian Pilsner. Yeah. Type of beer, and it's called Mama!
Yep, it's a reference to my favorite Queen song, arguably one of my favorite songs of all time, Bohemian Rhapsody, which is why I grabbed it. The actual beer is not a beer that I would typically drink. It's very hot. It's very bitter, I should say. I don't know if I would describe it as hoppy necessarily. I don't know if you would describe it as hoppy. Yeah, it's hoppy. Okay, all right. Yep. I'm not crazy. Yeah, it's very, very hoppy, but it's got a very kind of crispness behind the hot. Like it's like an immediate hot blast, and then it's kind of crisp on the finish. But
kind of a medium-bodied. I don't know. It has a lingering sweetness on the side of my tongue at the end, so it has like a sweet finish to it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to describe there.
Yeah,
but for a 4.7% alcohol, it's not as or it's more strong than I would, like flavor strong than I would expect for, I think of Pilsners, I think of lighter flavored beers. Right. And this one's just like, oh, nope, that's very, very strong flavor. So
I need to get nerdy about it, but I kind of lump blonde ales and Pilsners and light beers into the same category. And I know that's not true. There's differences amongst all those categories. But eventually I'll get nerdy about it and dig into it.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, as always, we like to start off with talking about the goings-ons and things that we have learned that have happened in the last week or so. And there's actually quite a bit this week. So a few things have gone down.
We are still in video game announcement season. Like this would have been E3 time, but the gaming industry at large, of course, having canceled everything because of coronavirus, they are now doing a lot of online droppings of trailers and like pre-recorded footage of games and announcements and stuff. So it's over a much longer period of time. Over months, actually, it's been happening. So there's like this pocket of intense announcements of every single day. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And then there's like a trickle and then we get more. It's like boom, boom, boom. And instead of having everything consolidated into the 4 days of E3, it's been weeks. So if you're tired of hearing us talk about all of these things, I'm sorry, but it's that time of year. And I actually love it.
New information. It's the first time that we've had, maybe not the first time, but it's it's the first time in my recent memory that we've had information doled out this way. Usually it's all at once at E3 and it's just like, brr! Yeah. Now it's just kind of all spread out. So yeah, we're just telling it as it comes, but.
Yep.
So with that in mind.
Yeah, and there's also a whole bunch of stuff. This whole topic, what we're discussing tonight, there's cultural things, a major shift in our culture, both in the gaming industry. That's, of course, affected by the greater cultural changes going on in our country with racial tensions and the Black Lives Matter movement and the coronavirus and masks being politicized, which we've talked about at length. Like, all this stuff is happening, and it's coming out in the gaming industry as well. And that is a perfect segue into our first news bit. PlayStation temporarily pulls the plug on Facebook and Instagram advertising. And I'm going to read from Push Square, Sammy Barker. So if you want, go check this out. It's a really short blurb. PlayStation has added its name to a growing number of brands that have temporarily ceased advertising on Facebook as firms put pressure on the social network to reduce the amount of hate speech appearing on the platform. Juggernauts such as Coca-Cola, Ford, Starbucks, Unilever, and Honda have also suspended Facebook advertising. The social network has attracted strong criticism for its rules regarding hate speech and misinformation. Competitors such as Twitter have already started to crack down on this kind of content. PlayStation will also temporarily halt any paid promotions it's running on Instagram, which is a subsidiary of Facebook.
Yeah,
and
so we're not going to...
This
is potentially an entire topic in and of itself. So this is just for people who aren't aware of why this is a big deal. It's because Facebook will... not only within its communities and within, like, the things that people post, but also Facebook allows, in its advertising, it allows political advertisements that have misinformation and, in some cases, hate speech, as was most recently demonstrated by the Nazi symbolism, Nazi iconography in a recent... advertisements for a particular political party that I won't specify for purposes of trying to remain apolitical. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they've gotten a lot of criticism for that, and to the point where advertisers are pulling the plug on their wallets, which is good thing. Again, as with any decision, it's primarily motivated by the companies that are pulling their ads realize they have more to lose than gain. In this case, by maintaining advertising on Facebook. But still, it is at least somewhat noble, their efforts to try to get Facebook to crack down on this stuff. So
a quick Termite aside about this. I like that social media platforms are being forced to kind of grow up. Yeah. I love the accountability coming down now. It started with this trickling of, I don't know if you saw it. It was like months ago. This was the before times, like last year even. Someone posted an article, and under it was like this Facebook pop-up, almost a pop-up that interrupted the scrolling and said, Snopes.com proves this article is false. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like, this is being labeled as misinformation, and another article was quoted in that, like, just in swiping through the feed. I didn't have to do anything to turn that on, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of the next step. Now it's like, let's just not even let misinformation even on the platform. And I think social media will grow culturally. The people that use it, if they're warned when they share something, like a meme that has false information in it, they'll have, like, a block. I think it's good. Anyway, it's just an aside.
Sure,
I think this is kind of cool, and it's indicative of, like, a greater, like, shift into a more mature social media platform.
Yeah, and it's what am I trying to put it? Sorry, last take.
Yeah.
But now I'm blanking on what I was going to say.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it's... before you cry censorship and free speech violations and all that stuff, I would like to remind... I say you, hypothetical person who right now is screaming at their radio or phone or whatever they're listening to on this and saying, but that's a censorship and free speech violation. Right. Facebook's a private platform. Facebook's a private company. They are allowed to remove whatever content they want, and it's not a free speech violation. So, yeah. Sorry about it.
You are still free to speak about whatever you want to speak about in whichever
public
fashion
space.
you want to. Yeah, in a public space, in writing, you can publish this stuff. Like, there's a million different ways. No, the law isn't coming down on you for saying something. That's,
as a private company, Facebook is culpable for whatever they allow on their platform. So they are also culpable, or they're also free to remove and revoke whatever they like. The same thing is true with Twitter and all the other social media accounts. Anyways, it's a total tangent. We've got more news to cover, so let's move it on.
Yep. This is something I'm extremely excited about. Westworld showrunners are creating a Fallout show for Amazon. I'm reading from The Verge, Chaim Gardenberg. I don't know how to pronounce that name, so I hope I did it right. Amazon is making a new Fallout TV series based on the popular post-apocalyptic RPG games from Bethesda. There are virtually no details on the project, except that it will be an Amazon Prime original produced by Kilter Films. A report from Hollywood Reporter adds that the project is coming from Westworld creators Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan as part of their overall deal with Amazon. Bethesda Game Studios' Todd Howard and Bethesda Softworks' James Altman will also serve as executive producers on the project, which is still in the development stages. Oh my gosh. I cannot wait. That's amazing.
It could go one way or another. You know what I mean? Like I didn't
watch Westworld season 3, but I heard it kind of fell off.
I
heard 3 wasn't
right.
good.
I haven't watched 3 yet either. I loved 1 and 2, just I don't know. I feel like a Fallout show sounds like a great thing, but then I think like, what is there to distinguish it from every other freaking post-apocalyptic movie and TV show that's out there, right? Yep. Fallout's a great game because of its gameplay elements. And so to translate that onto a show will take some effort. I think the smartest decision they could make, I think one of the best things about Fallout is its vaults and vault tech iconography. So I would say season 1, just make it the entire season of vault, like taking place in a vault. And then you question the entire time whether or not it's
Dude, there's
real.
Some shady stuff that happens in those vaults.
Exactly. And like you could have the characters questioning whether or not, like, the whole thing could be a mind F as to whether or not it's like there is actually an apocalypse or not. And then at the end of season 1, they could open the vault and they could have the iconic opening of the vault and repopulation. So that could be, I don't know, that could be an interesting way of doing it.
Take. The unique thing about this is the setting is also in like 1940s, 50s-esque kind of culture and era. Like radio shows and TV shows are all like 1950s, but I don't know if it's modern day times. Like we had just like, it's an alternate universe where we didn't really evolve our technology beyond the nuclear stuff. I don't know. But it's unique.
My take on it was always that it was just an alternate version of the 1950s where they had advanced technology and
because there's like robots and stuff that wouldn't ever exist in the 50s.
But I in my mind, I don't know. My take on it was always that like it took place in the 1950s and then the vaults opened up and it would be closer to now modern times when the vaults opened up. But I don't know.
That's good. Yeah,
they were never really like, it's an alternate world, right? So they never published their timelines is how it lines up, but there are like I feel like they have to really lean into the elements that make Fallout unique, because otherwise it's just going to be every post-apocalyptic show ever. And stinking HBO is already doing The Last of Us, and like if you have The Last of Us and Fallout come out in the same year, for example, it would be really hard. They would have to work a lot harder. Both shows would have to work a lot harder to stand out. So it's happening though, that we've talked about this on our show before, where we talked about the adaptations of video games to film. In some way or another, it's happening, whether it's TV or movies. So that's...
And we got The Witcher.
We got The Witcher.
Like, what, 7 out of 10? Awesome? Like,
we got Sonic the Hedgehog. We had Detective Pikachu. So these things
Pikachu was so good. Yeah.
These things are starting to happen. And we haven't
they're getting better. You know?
Yeah, they're getting better. We haven't had the great one yet, but we've had some pretty good ones. So
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that this is it.
Cool.
All right. Moving on. There was a CD Projekt Red, the developers of The Witcher 3, as we just talked about. They're making the Cyberpunk 2077 game. Had a Night City Wire is what they called it, but it was essentially like a developer video. They just dropped like a conversation with a new gameplay trailer, a whole like gameplay deep dive. It was about 25 minutes long, and there was some awesome stuff that was revealed about the game and some new like driving sequences that you could see and a lot more explanation of what the game is going to be. And it's going to be the most ambitious game since Grand Theft Auto 5. This is like a combination of BioWare level, and it's Prime, like good BioWare, not Anthem BioWare, like good BioWare decision trees and interactions with NPCs. Obviously from The Witcher, right? Like it's The Witcher, I should just use that because that's the same developers, right? So Witcher level side quest depth where nothing is filler, deep, meaningful NPCs that have entire life stories written for them, whether they're used in the game or not, just to provide context for the writers. Like they have every NPC in the game has an entire life story of where they were born, where they were raised, who their parents were, details like that, all the way up through the grand scale of being able to drive and traverse through Night City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
at a Grand Theft Auto level, like stealing cars and driving around.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a reminder, Cyberpunk is based off of an actual tabletop RPG of the same name,
right?
So I'm not surprised that they are really leaning into the RPG elements, and that's everything I've heard so far. Is like, yes, the game takes place in first-person perspective. Yes, you are shooting, and yes, there's all these other elements from various games, but it is first and foremost an RPG, a role-playing game of the same caliber as a tabletop in a lot of ways, with the heavy inspiration from tabletops. So it seems like go anywhere, do anything, open sandbox, all the characters fleshed out, and they said you can go Grand Theft Auto if you like, in regards to just going and starting to wreak havoc. But they said a lot of their players that did that, a lot of their playtesters that went that route and started doing that, quickly adapted and adjusted their playstyle when they found out. So it sounds like the world will funnel you in the right direction. And it sounds like doing so, like trying to go ham and just go AWOL off the rails, is going to be harder to just do than in a game like Grand Theft Auto that encourages that kind of behavior. So, cool.
I will read a little bit. There's like 10 bullet points of some of the stuff that they showed off that was new, so this won't take very long. But I do want to highlight it because it was really awesome. If you haven't had a chance to go check this out, like I said, a 25-minute video, you'll see it all. There's this new thing called Brain Dance, and it's a whole like gameplay feature, but it's also a thing in the world. Brain Dance is a recording of somebody else's experience and lets you live through their memories, their sights, smells, sounds, everything will be experienced by you through Brain Dance. In an extended gameplay preview, the V was shown, that's the character that you play as, was shown living through the memory of someone else's robbery in a grocery store. In an analysis mode, V was able to explore the same scene, but this time as an observer. They could move the camera around and analyze the memory from a new perspective. It's almost like a detective mode. Braindance was created in UC Santa Cruz as a therapy method. It was later used for more carnal thrills. There are negative side effects like flatlining, where someone can die while braindancing. CD Projekt Red says Braindance will be an important storytelling device to explore the world's history, philosophy, and different factions.
Is that like, 1 out of 10 things that you're going to talk about?
No, that was it. That was all
okay.
of it. Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, you went into way more detail than I expected if you're going to go through.
No, yeah, that was all of that.
The braindancing thing looked really cool. It looks like it's going to be a very interesting.
Did you watch it?
Thing. I did. I watched part of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I got the basic gist of it, and it looks like it's going to add a whole new like layer to the storytelling when you're doing this for multiple quests and stuff like that. So
a concern from Termite, which should raise all of your alarms, because Termite never has concerns. Termite is the king of hype, and everything is amazing and awesome. A concern from Termite about Cyberpunk 2077's Braindance is that it'll be used too much.
Oh yeah, I can see it being overused. I hope not. I agree. They also got rid of the wall running, which I just found out, where they like showed off recently in some gameplay. They said that due to design, the way I interpreted that is because everything's due to design, of course, when it comes to designing video games. But that specifically made me think that there were like levels they couldn't make work. Like they couldn't make certain like obstacles work if you had the ability to wall run. So it sounds like they removed it for that reason. But disappointing because it looked really cool in the. It also
sounds
trailer.
Like the approach the developers are taking is that nothing in this game is without meaning, as far as like all the way down from a story perspective, an entirely like piece of dialogue, story level, all the way down to why the player is pushing a button on the controller. They're all linked together, and they're trying to like make everything matter so much that maybe wall running could have been some augment that you do to your body, and that was it, and that was too shallow for them. Maybe I'm just speculating because it seems like this feature.
We're running out of time for news, so let's hit these last two ones before.
Oh my goodness! All right, EA Play. So EA Play happened. It was their E3. It was very lackluster. It didn't really have a whole lot. You could tell they are struggling with the COVID stuff, and like they don't have a whole lot to show. And like some people are saying why they even do this, but they did. EA Play 2020. The biggest thing that came out of it was Skate 4. They're not calling it Skate 4, but a new game in the Skate franchise is happening. I'm quoting
Skate 4.
I know, right? Quoting one of the ladies from What's Good Games podcast saying is it felt like they had just signed the contract to start the project and then immediately went to a live stream to talk about
that. Wouldn't surprise me.
It was that fresh. It was so fresh. They had no clue about anything about this game other than they're doing it. There was 10 new whole seconds of Dragon Age 4 footage. There was a much more explanation, deep dive into Star Wars Squadrons and showing gameplay, campaign multiplayer, and the new massive fleet battle mode. It Takes Two is the next game from the developer Hazelight, which made A Way Out. And one of the critiques of the EA play that I've heard, I kind of agree with, is that they focused way too much on that whole thing was like their highlight. And it was just, it's the next game. It's great. It's awesome, but let's go. It shows that they're in a weird spot with COVID-19 and all that. So there's another new game they released or showed off called Lost in Random as a Tim Burton inspired adventure from the EA Originals program. That's the program that brought you like Unraveled 1 and 2 and what's that? Solitude, Sea of Solitude. Like those games came out of the EA Originals. So their next thing is called Lost in Random. That actually looks really freaking fun. There's like this little dice pet that follows you around, and the whole world is like driven by gambling, and like the whole entire world, everything is chance based. And so like you have this pet that's a die. And so it seemed really quirky and kind of fun. You know, the whole Tim Burton art style looked really cool too. So I'm interested in that. Of course, EA Sports has the PS5 information about FIFA 21 and Madden NFL 21, about how you can upgrade to the PS5 version for free. That's now confirmed. And then Rocket Arena is a new game. I thought it was, what developer? It's a new arena shooter, but it's all rockets. And it comes out 14th of July. And I'm trying to find the developer because the developer was enticing.
Do you have to?
The gameplay looks fun. It's like, I know.
We're out of time, so we're going to have to cut the last news story.
The developers.
Let's move on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Termite not being able to do his research ahead of time is not my favorite thing, but
doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Favorite things.
Favorite things. Sorry to cut you off, man. But we're 22 minutes in, and we've got a meaty topic to talk about tonight. So, favorite things is a segment where we like to update you on whatever thing we may have discovered or been excited about this week, and in hopes that you might find your next favorite thing. So, do you have your favorite thing?
Oh, I have my favorite thing. It is right here, right in front of me. So I'm going to read to you guys the start of a conversation before it gets too not family friendly between Penguin Man and myself, where he's telling me about how he's editing a podcast, and then it changes very quickly into something else, and I am dying. So it was clearly my favorite thing.
You may not, for context, you may want to point out the fact that this is entire conversation started because your microphone was pointed in the wrong direction when we recorded last time. I don't know what magic you're going to pull on that editing job to make it sound better. It'll probably sound fine to our listeners.
But it'll be okay.
Yeah. But if you noticed that the episode last week was quieter, there's a reason for that. Carry on.
I did have my microphone backwards, but sure. Okay. So Penguin Man says 145 is another one where you are way quieter than me. So just make sure it sounds good when you level it out. Gotcha. I wonder what's going on. The setup is identical. Then I'm met with, I don't know. Are you leaning in close? Am I leaning in too much? And I said, same position as I always do. Then I'm replied with, what's your favorite position? That's cool with me. It's not my favorite, but I'll do it for you. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going there. What's your favorite dish? So I ignorantly reply, I have a boom stand. The mic is right in my face. I sit straight and look forward. Like I'm still in this conversation. I haven't realized what it has turned into yet. I'm not going to cook it, but I'll order it from Zanzibar. I very quickly realized he is not supposed to be sending me this information. So I said, it's cool with me too. I love Zanzibar. Then Penguin Man continues to say, and then I'm going to love you completely. And that sounds hot, Termite says. And and then he gets into less family friendly speech about rhyming. I guess he's quoting a song. I will do things to you discreetly, and I'll do more things to you completely. And I said, even better, with an eggplant emoji. And then he, I guess, is continuing to quote this song. So I have more emojis. And then I asked him if this was what his wife was into. And I died, immediately showed my wife, and we had the biggest laugh we've had all week. And so thank you, Penguin Man, for my favorite thing.
I'm glad I could quote.
I hope that was super embarrassing for you.
Song. It's there's nothing embarrassing about it because anyone will recognize that as a very famous and hilarious Tenacious D song. And I have no shame in quoting Tenacious D, especially when it was appropriate in the conversation to do so. Appropriately
Not
hilarious.
With Termite.
The funny thing is, I thought you knew what that song was. So the fact that you
No.
didn't know what the song was is even
Made it
funnier.
even funnier.
So did you end
Yeah.
up listening to it after I
No,
sent
not
it to
yet.
you?
Because
Oh
when
my
you sent it to me,
gosh,
I had Jude in my room,
I
and
see.
he's a baby.
He's not gonna
and Sam
remember.
was right. I know, but Sam was right around the
Oh, okay,
corner. I was
sorry,
like up
Sam.
in my family life. I wasn't gonna, blast this.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's funny. That's funny that you shared it. Yeah, it was pretty funny that you didn't know what it was. Yeah. For all the times that you apparently quoted Hamilton and got away with it or whatever, I deserved one hilarious conversation where I got away quoting a song that you didn't recognize.
There you go.
So
Yeah, I mean, there was a string of
boom.
like 20 episodes in a row where I quoted Hamilton. It was fantastic.
And I
It's
got
gonna
you
kick up again.
in one Facebook conversation.
It was great.
Yeah, but now if I watch Hamilton, I'll recognize all the quotes.
I doubt it. They were
your
very
magic
subtle.
Your magic's gonna lose. I'm gonna memorize that entire musical now just so I can catch it. You know me.
That'd be great. Then we can
Um,
sing it together because I have most of it memorized. So
Well, I'm not throwing away my shot, so.
hey,
But
are you just like your country? You're young, scrappy, and hungry.
Yes, I am. And my favorite thing is actually food related, so that was a perfect segue.
How about that?
My birthday was pretty much the day after we recorded last week, and my wife picked me up some food for my birthday. She got a lunch box from Miso.
Yes.
Their lunches are super generous. It was like $8 for a box of food that was an entree, a full entree, a side of sushi, like a quarter roll of sushi, a side of fried rice. Yeah, fried rice. You got your pick of like fried or brown or white rice, and then a salad. Like massive amount of food, and it was delicious. It was awesome having some. I had been craving sushi a few days before that, so she knew that and picked up some miso. So miso lunch boxes, $8.75 in Fredericksburg, are my favorite thing. And also, I started a new show at the behest of a friend of the show, Charlie Bowman, who recommended to me Mr. Robot. And it's on Amazon Prime. It's a USA show. Yeah, it's a USA show. I've heard good things about it. He wasn't the only person that recommended it. I had someone else tell me that it was one of the first shows they'd watched in a long time that stuck the landing because they just had their last season. And it's like, what show can you recall that has like ended on a good note and stuck the landing? But it's got Rami Malek in it. It's about he's a hacker, and the show is apparently well regarded as having stunt hackers on the show, meaning they have someone else do the actual thing, so it's true to like what real life hacking looks like, and then they just take that and superimpose it on the screen with Rami Malek doing it. So it's a very, if you're a tech person involved in tech at all, which you are, I know you are, you should check the show out. It's pretty good because it's very true to what real life computing is about. So
sweet.
Mr. Robot, favorite thing. Sushi. All
right.
Favorite thing.
Dude, we had a date night where we got some miso. It was fantastic. We sat outside. Like, we put the kids to bed. It's awesome. I love miso.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Well, that's favorite things. So normally we would do DLC here, but we are almost 30 minutes into this show, and I want to make as few cuts as possible to the actual recording. So I vote that since we're talking about a pretty heavy topic, we skip it. But if you think we can squeeze one in.
If you had one like ready to go, because it's like blank on my notes. Yeah. If you have one, we can do it.
I just edited last week's episode, and I said next time we should do the reverse of what we did this time. So we could, since our topic is not one that lends itself to frivolity, we could do a non-topical DLC and do the reverse of what we did last week.
And last week's was quick. I vote we do it.
Okay, cool, fine. Then next segment of our show. The next segment of our show is. That's my bad. I paused on you. That's my bad. I totally let you into that. Anyways, so DLC is a segment of our show where we have a fun discussion that is or is not related to our main topic, and this one obviously is not because of the heaviness of our main topic. So we are going to do another video game movie director. So I will pick a movie and you will pick a video game character that is not Solid Snake.
I think he is banned for like a year from all of these.
From all of this.
I've got one.
Okay.
I've got one.
You've got one, and I don't know what he's picked, so I'm going to pick a movie, and the movie I'm going to pick is... How familiar are you with Quentin Tarantino? Like, super familiar?
I would put myself at like a 5 out of 10.
Okay,
like 10 being ridiculously familiar.
Okay.
And 1 being nothing.
Then let's do Inglourious Bastards. You've seen that one?
No, I have not.
How about Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, more recently,
Pulp Fiction.
Too.
You see, I was going to do Pulp Fiction as my first choice. And,
there you go.
And I assumed that you hadn't seen it because I thought Inglourious Bastards was more popular.
That movie
Pulp
was awesome.
Fiction. Okay, so the movie is Pulp Fiction. Who directed it? in this.
Tom Nook. It's perfect.
Oh my gosh. It is
because the meme of Tom Nook is that he is this ridiculously strict mob boss that wants all of your money and just comes after you.
So, first of all, though, Tom Nook is a realist, but his reality is that of animals. So imagine the plot of Pulp Fiction, but with cute animals, but still as violent. No, not just as violent, more violent.
Now we're in South Park. What, the Furnimals? What are they called?
The critters, the woodland critters.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that episode is one of my favorite South Park episodes, but is solely because you think that episode can't get any worse, and then it gets worse, and then you're like, okay, worse. it can't get worse than what this is the absolute worst, and it's like, nope, it gets worse, and for that reason and that reason alone of its continuing, escalating, soul killing, not safe for life nature is one of my favorites. So yes, that is the total tone of Tom Nook's version of Pulp Fiction.
Yep, that's it. Sorry if you guys listeners have not seen those episodes of South Park, but it's these like Christmas critters that are all cutesy and little fun,
and then
they get crazy violent and ridiculously belligerent, and it's out of this. It's like really adult.
Yes,
really.
And we
really
tried.
Adult.
We said we were going to keep this family friendly, so it is just murder is the least of things that they do. Violent murder is the least of things they do.
Use your imagination.
So,
and that is Tom Nook's version of Pulp Fiction.
But so it basically his version of Pulp Fiction, or his version of anything Quentin Tarantino, is what he clearly in his twisted raccoon mind wants to do to the denizens of Animal Crossing, but can't, because that would make the game, his Nintendo overlords would fire him. You know what I mean? So, but it's like in his twisted mind, clearly twisted mind, nobody who charges that much for property taxes should be considered neurologically sane. Great, awesome, cool. Well, that was a quick one then. I agree. I'm glad we didn't cut DLC. Anything else you want to add about Tom Nook's Pulp Fiction?
Nope.
All right, great. Then I'm assuming the lead role would be played by Isabel, though, because he has a soft spot for Isabel.
Of course.
So
she's Uma Thurman's
Tom
character.
Hanks, or is it Uma? I was thinking she'd be playing Tom Hanks' character and just be a complete BA. I mean, you saw all those comics with her in Doom Guy, so I think she's got the chops to play Tom Hanks' character. Yeah, not Tom Hanks. Who am I thinking? John Travolta. John Travolta's character.
Right.
Tom Hanks is not in Pulp Fiction. John Travolta. I'm a dumb.
Right.
All right. Great. That's DLC. All right. That's a little levity for you guys before we talk about how the Me Too movement is changing the gaming industry. Another alternative way of saying our topic is we are talking about sexism in the gaming industry. So, again, due to the nature of some of the articles we're pulling, some of the quotes, and some of the discussion, we're not going to be outwardly gratuitous any more than we normally are, but we are going to be talking about factual things that have happened and are happening. So, therefore, due to the nature of this topic, it's probably going to get into not family-friendly territory. So, if you've listened 30 minutes up to this point, we have provided you with a nice, brief, brisk 30-minute podcast, and encourage you to move on to whatever you're going to listen to next. Maybe a stuff you should know or something. But we are going to be talking about more heavy topics from here on out. So that's our disclaimer. That's our first disclaimer.
So Bounce, let's let Bounce get the kids out of here. This is it. In the most nicest way possible.
Exactly.
Unless you want to subject your kids to us about this topic, then you can keep them and use parental discretion.
Yep, exactly. Yes. Viewer discretion is advised.
There you go.
But so another couple disclaimers we wanted to go ahead and get out of the way, and kind of be transparent and upfront about is we are two white straight males.
Yep.
And so we understand that in talking about sexism in the gaming industry, it is our positionality, our privilege means that we haven't been personally affected by a lot of this stuff, even though the argument can be made it affects all of us. But nevertheless, we understand that, like, in a perfect world with unlimited amount of time, we would have reached out and to some of our female contacts to try to get a voice of an actual woman to talk about these issues that and how it affects them.
Yep.
But we understand we're two straight white males, so therefore we don't intend to offend or exclude anybody. You know, we have history with this stuff too. You know what I mean? Like I can't say that my life has been immune to sexism and that I haven't been complicit in that kind of thing before. So so you know, again, that our biases may still bubble up in certain cases, but we are going to try very hard not to offend or exclude anybody. But just be aware that, again, we are talking about also a fairly narrow thing. So if you feel like your particular issues based on your positionality of your sexual orientation or gender identity or anything like that haven't been touched on by this, it's because we are specifically talking about how this affects women primarily in this episode. So if you want us to address those things in another episode, we will do so. So, and then all of this is just to say, we're not intending to offend or exclude anybody, but we also know that people have opinions. So we're going to be expressing ours, and we are going to be expressing support of this movement as well. So just like we talked about in our Black Lives Matter intro opening of that episode on the Father's Day episode, we fully understand if we lose listeners as a result of our opinions on this. So the of the two of you, if one of you left in Black Lives Matter, then the other one leaves in this one. But we want to come out in support of these women and support of this movement. And so we would rather have 0 listeners and just be screaming into the void, I think, than to have a bunch of sexist, misogynistic listeners. We are not going to capitalize on that. So that is our 2 cents on that.
And a lot of these cases that we're dealing with tonight are mostly women that have come forward, but that's not it. There have been members of the LGBTQ community that have also spoken up, and this does affect the same, like, we stand by you guys as well. And so we are speaking out against any form of discrimination, specifically with gender bias. And so like this looks like a feminist movement because it is mostly pushed forward and spearheaded by that big giant Me Too movement that started in Hollywood, which was focused on sexism and how women are sexually abused. But this extends to the LGBTQ community as well. If you are sexually harassed or assaulted because of your sexual status, this affects you too.
Absolutely.
And this is an extension of that. So I just want to clarify, like, we would stand with anyone who wants to sexually harass or sexually abuse or cause any harm to you guys because of your sexual orientation.
You just said that we will stand with those people. No, we will stand against. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Just wanted to clarify.
With people who are coming out. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. No, we are against any form of harassment, discrimination, or in this industry and in the workplace. So So that's just because someone feels and believes differently than you does not mean you have the right to harass them. So if you're a sexist, go and we don't want you. You're not welcome here.
Right.
So,
that's right. Be cool
but
to
obviously,
people. Be nice.
People have, obviously people can grow and change. So there's room for that. So if you want to listen to this point of view, then by all means, stick around. So anyways, gosh, that was a lot of disclaimers, a lot of preachy.
That's fine.
Up the front. I think it's fine. So cool. We are talking about the sexism in the gaming industry. We are talking about the Me Too movement. So what is the Me Too movement, and where does it intersect with the gaming world, the gaming industry, and culture?
The Me Too movement, again, as I referenced, started in Hollywood. Exposing Harvey Weinstein-ish was kind of the big, if you wanted to put a pinpoint on it, there was a bunch of stuff in Hollywood. This wrecked in a good way, in an amazing way, Hollywood, and brought Harvey Weinstein to trial, and I do believe he's in jail. So the movement began to spread virally as a hashtag on social media. And in 2017, around the October timeframe, I'm reading a synopsis here from Wikipedia, but sure. American actress Alyssa Milano posted on Twitter, quote, if all the women who have been sexually harassed or assaulted wrote Me Too as a status, we might give people a sense of the magnitude of the problem, saying that she got the idea from a friend. A number of high-profile posts and responses from American celebrities Gwyneth Paltrow, Ashley Judd, Jennifer Lawrence, Uma Thurman, among others. Hey, Uma Thurman again. Widespread media coverage and discussion of sexual harassment, particularly in Hollywood, led to high-profile firings as well as criticism and backlash. There was a whole movement that happened, again, 3 years ago. We're almost 3 years out. And now, the reason we're talking about this tonight is because we have a second Me Too movement specifically in the gaming industry. With publishers, developers, and really, really, really in the communities of Twitch, streaming, and YouTubers amongst that.
Yeah, and we'll go into a little bit more detail recently as to like what events happened that sparked this. In fact, that's coming up next in regards to what we're going to be talking about. But kind of the general overall thing is it intersects with gaming. I mean, it intersected with gaming back when the Me Too movement started, back in 2020. We don't have a date on it, but it started earlier in the decade. And I mean, at that time, there was like out of that movement originally, when it first started, we saw the whole Gamergate response, and that whole thing got tied up together And so that was kind of the first time that the two movements, or that movement, intersected, and there was a direct response from it.
Mm-hmm.
But
and Gamergate was the lady who had spoke out was met with death threats, and she was gaslit and completely attacked for speaking out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So the Gamergate specifically refers to the response of the gaming culture. It wasn't to everybody. It was a bunch of particularly toxic people on 4chan and 8chan who perpetuated that hashtag Gamergate. But It was, there was her ex-boyfriend posted about how she was outspoken about sexism in the gaming industry, and her ex-boyfriend was like, well, I'm gonna post all this stuff about how you used, your sexuality or whatever you slept with a bunch of people and got where you got in the gaming industry because of that. And so he posted all this obviously unsubstantiated rumors just because he was miffed at their breakup. And that's what started the whole Gamergate thing. That was
2014?
I think so. Or it might have been late. I think it was later, because I think I was married at that point. So I think because I was I remember being in our apartment when we first read about it. So it might have been 2015 or 2016. But it was
around that time.
Middle of the decade, yeah. And it was around the time the Me Too movement was happening. I don't know if it was before or after. My time's getting a little iffy. But anyways, so that's kind of what happened then. This kind of stuff is happening again, but there's a completely different response to it this time around. So it's crazy what a difference 5 years can make. But anyways, so firstly, though, I think I wanted to kind of start with a very heavy-hitting, a very deep question, and one that we all should be asking at this point in 2020. Why is sexism so prevalent in the gaming industry and in gaming culture?
The best way that I can answer questions like that, so again, we are white, straight males, and we are not in the gaming industry other than this podcast as observers of the gaming industry. So, we're not in it. Our boots aren't in the ground here. It's not our companies, but it could be. So I look at examples. So that's why is sexism so prevalent in the gaming industry? I need to see examples and trends that are happening. So Jason Schreier, who's now in the website Bloomberg, posted this little blurb, and I'll read from it. On Saturday night, referring to, I think it was June 20th, Jackie Collins, a public relations representative for Riot Games, shared a screenshot of sexually explicit text messages from Avalone, which is another person on Twitter. This was before I was full-time in the games industry, but knew I wanted a future in it and was actively working towards that, she wrote. Chris was one of the, quote, industry greats I was frankly flattered to even know, let alone be friendly with. So I forgave and regularly asked him career advice. Yet he was the one that was sending sexually explicit text messages to her, which is horrible, and especially if it's non-consensual. So that's an example of a high-profile person in the gaming industry. Of course, they have access to opportunities. So why is sexism prevalent in the gaming industry? Just like in our culture and in Hollywood, there are people who are the gatekeepers to people's careers. And they're also bad, sexist, and will exploit women who want to get somewhere in their careers and do, this lady, Jackie Collins, quoted saying, I wanted a future in it and was actively working towards it. He was an industry great. I was frankly flattered to even know, let alone be friendly with. So that whole relationship was completely exploited.
Right. It was a power. It was him abusing his position of power.
Abuse.
Yep. It was a power dynamic there.
And so the way Hollywood and the gaming industry are set up structurally, last thought.
No, you're fine.
The reason why it's prevalent in these types of industries, in the creative industry, is that the men that have been put in power, this is systemic, right? This is women are just now getting to the point where our pay is the same, much less career opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. So the video game industry started in the 70s as an industry, probably the late 60s. And then the film industry started in the 40s. And so if you look at history, women didn't have the same prevalence in our culture as they had independence, power, status as they do now back then, especially when we were way worse as a culture as far as feminism is concerned. And so you have these high-ranking guys, these white straight men that have promoted white straight men into these powerful positions, and they're the gatekeepers. And so that's at a systemic level in a nutshell from a very inexperienced person like myself observing the industry.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head that this is it's systemic and way harder to talk about in, 5 to 10 minutes of a 30-minute episode or a 30-minute conversation about it. But I mean, I look at a couple things. Number one, I look at the fact that you're right. It's systemic. What you have seen for the last several centuries is like these kinds of things. Video games require an education. Designing video games require an education in computing and technology. Those are typically male-driven industries and male.
Yeah.
Sorry. I say traditionally.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of things that boys are told they should pursue and they should go after, and they're encouraged, and there's avenues that are opened up for them. Whereas girls are, or you were previously, encouraged to, I mean, if you're talking about the 70s, you still had like girls had to take home ec while the boys took shop. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. That's systemic educational problem. I mean, you brought up Hollywood. Entertainment is rife with this because, again, the entertainment industry as we know it was started by dudes with cameras in the desert, and has always been dudes with the dudes who own the cameras are the ones who get movies made. That's what Hollywood executives are, is they're just guys who have cameras. They're big, expensive cameras and a massive industry now, but they started as just dudes who owned cameras. So of course those dudes are going to be inclined, especially when they are themselves raised to devalue women, they're going to be inclined to hire, promote, and perpetuate more males in the industry. So again, these industries that were started by males for males, it's going to be male oriented in how it goes forward. And so you see that again, video games are the same thing. They were marketed towards young, aggressive, post-pubic boys in the 90s, and that's kind of where they started having their heyday, where they kind of had their golden age. So a lot of the people, boys were told to play video games while girls played with Barbies or whatever in the 90s. That was how it was when I was growing up. And so again, the people who then grew up to want to make games were dudes with toxic attitudes, toxic behaviors. The internet and the communities that sprung up around gaming didn't help this. I mean, you're talking about, you want examples of toxicity towards women and sexism in the gaming industry, look no further than your local Xbox Live Halo chat or whatever.
Just jump into like Call of Duty with your mic on and be a girl. Exactly. We talked to oh my gosh, I'm blanking
Kristen.
on her name.
Yeah,
Kristen, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shut up, Kristen. We talked to her about this exact thing in Overwatch. Like, just having your mic on and uttering the phrase, "What class should I pick?" which is a rightful question to ask when you're trying to play as a team. She is immediately like labeled as fake gamer girl, or her skills aren't as good, and then she has to her account like has to like fake. Not fake it, but like exaggerate her gaming prowess to prove herself, which is ridiculous. Like, you shouldn't have to do that. But yeah, that's the culture of the community of the gamers themselves. That runs rampant everywhere.
Yep.
Online.
And it's self-perpetuating, right? Like, you have people who get involved in that. I mean, I can attest to the fact that, when I was deep in my World of Warcraft days, it's hard to just like, when you're talking, shooting the crap with your guild, like, it's hard not to get swept up in just whatever jokes and stuff. But like, when you just hear those things over and over again, whether it is a stupid, callous, and tasteless joke about something horrible, like sexual assault, but when you just hear it and are exposed to it over and over and over and over again, it just becomes part of the way you think and the lexicon of words you choose. So its prevalence is self-sustaining, and it creates these just incredibly toxic communities online. So the internet just, again, being started by pubescent and post-pubescent boys, in the 2000s and late 90s, like, it just kind of, the online community kind of formed is one of the pillars of sexism in the gaming industry, because those same boys who played games and talked about those horrible things online with their friends, joked about it, then would go on to become game designers, game developers, and those same gatekeepers you were talking about. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. There's power dynamics at play, there's toxicity, there's just cultural things, and it's just a massive problem that has become just huge. I mean, in our gaming industry, and just I can't imagine starting even just doing what we're doing, trying to start a podcast as a woman in this industry right now, putting yourself out there, and like, it requires an incredible amount of courage, just knowing what you're going to face. Like, up to now, we've mostly been ignored as two white dudes talking about games. If that's the worst that happens to us, that's great. I don't want people sending me pictures of their genitals on my phone. I don't want them threatening or sending threats to my house. I don't want people assuming that I only did what I did or got where I got because of, sexually explicit behaviors or anything like that. Like, I don't want And that's just by being a woman in this gaming industry, like that's the stuff they face every day. It's nuts.
Yep.
Anyways, so
that was a bleak picture, but things are better. They are getting better. They're not there yet.
Yep.
Yeah, so lots of stuff happened. That's why we're here talking about this today.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you for segueing us nicely into the next question. What's happened in the last few weeks that has exposed a lot of the sexism in the industry? And what has the reaction been? And how has that reaction been different from the aforementioned Gamergate? So this is where we're going to be getting some heavy news bits.
So this comes off the heels of America going through Black Lives Matter, the murder of George Floyd, in the context of a pandemic where we're all stuck at home, quarantining, working from home, and our lives online presence has like increased and shot up. I mean, like Twitch reported a record streaming 5 billion hours, I think, in the last month or something. Insane, right? So that's like the cultural, this is what people are doing with their lives. We're stuck at home and we're reading things on the internet. We're politically charged. We're ready to go and fight and pitchforks. And so all of this stuff is happening. And I really, the reason why I'm even bringing that up is because what you just said about Gamergate and how that was treated and how this new movement is treated, what actually happened, we'll go through those details, is like people care more because the distractions of our normal lives are gone. We no longer have the rat race of going to work every day and coming home, sitting in traffic, being mad at traffic, listening to the radio of politics news that are happening while you're infuriated. You have a very narrow view of what's going on in your mind. And then you come home and you might have kids to deal with, and you have schedules and you have to take them, drop them off, pick them up. You have dinner to plan, meals to cook, kids to go to bed, boom, 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 boom. And you have 2 hours at night to just think about stuff. Now we're all quarantined. We're at home. Everything's shut down. You're not driving anymore. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything. And so you're sitting and your thoughts suddenly go from 3 hours to 12, 14 hours a day, where you can sit and just stew and think and react and be online and see all the stuff that's happening. So I think all of that is kind of relevant in context with how this is received, because how this gets this is the Me Too movement within the video game industry that we're talking about tonight. How this was reacted to was much better, infinitely better.
Well, I think you had, like you said,
was happened.
With more people being online, more voices are, people have more time to actually engage their opinions on this stuff, when before they might have been too busy to, sit there and write up and jot down a tweet, and then too tired at the end of their workday to do the same. Whereas now, whereas with Gamergate, it's like the toxic gamers who wanted to harass these people, they had all the time, at least they made all the time in the world to do that. Now it's like, now there's the dissenting voices who now have all the time. You have all the people who are like, no, this is some bullcrap. We're going to take a stand on this, who are just like surging the online space right now with their points of view. And that point of view just happens to be the opposite and counter of the Gamergate point of view. So those trolls, as far as I am aware, have been pretty silent this time around. And it's probably because they've been faced with this overwhelming wave of support. Maybe many of them have turned a new leaf and are in support of this kind of thing now. But I think the most toxic among them are probably seeing that their voices are going to get drowned out on this one. So I don't know, it's kind of cool.
And it seems like the way companies are reacting, and we'll get to the reaction of all this stuff at the end, towards the end of this, but how the reaction of what has happened is the companies are scared now that there are more eyes on them, and they are scared of the lack of response or the lack of statement or the lack of action from what's being called out, because there are more people sitting at home and there are more eyes on them. And
so speaking of what happened,
it's like holding companies to they're holding their feet to the fire. But we'll go into it. Jason Schreier, again, the same Bloomberg article. I have to be reminded to link off to this because it's a great article. It's really long, and I'm pulling snippets from it as we need to for this discussion, because it's so good. It has everything in one spot. There's also, I have like 10 to 15 tabs open right now of articles from New York Times to Polygon to The Verge to everywhere, IGN, game industry. And this is from Bloomberg. So it's a lot. It is a whole lot. And it took a lot of reading to prepare for tonight. And I still feel unprepared. So here's what happened. Sure. I don't know, sorry. All of that was just a giant preface and context to the actual what happened. What is going on? Here we go. Jason Schreier says, dozens of women took to social media over the past few days to outline explosive allegations against prominent men in the world of video gaming and streaming, setting the stage for what could be the beginning of a #MeToo reckoning for the $150 billion video game industry. 4 women leveled accusations of sexual misconduct against Chris Avellone, a critically acclaimed video game writer, leading one developer to end its cooperation with him and prompting him to part ways with another game in the works. A different woman accused Ami Dariani, the chief executive officer of the Online Performers Group. So now we're getting into the streaming side. The Online Performers Group is a talent agency that works with many video game streamers of making an unwelcome sexual overture. Dariani resigned from his post on Sunday. That would be like June 23rd. Some streamers began calling for a blackout Wednesday of Amazon's Twitch, the biggest game streaming platform, alleging that it turns a blind eye to this misbehavior. The gaming industry has for years been criticized as unwelcoming, if not hostile to women, but has not yet faced the Me Too movement on the same scale as Hollywood and other industries. This week's flurry of postings was unique in terms of its volume and public nature. It has sent ripples across the industry. Accusations began appearing on Twitter late Friday night, and each new post emboldened other women to publicly share their stories. Many of the postings about the men accused of misconduct were subsequently compiled in a thread on Medium. There is a spreadsheet. It is massive of every single man accused of misconduct, and it is striking. It's a lot. All right. So in rare instances over the past 3 years, accusations have emerged against powerful men, including a depiction of a culture of sexism at Riot Games, a sexual assault allegation against a top former developer at Take-Two Interactive Software Inc.'s Rockstar Games, the maker of Grand Theft Auto. 3 weeks after the article's publication in online gaming magazine Kotaku in 2018, Riot Games said it had, quote, much to improve, and that it would overhaul many of its practices. Rockstar Games declined to comment on those allegations raised in the story published last year, and the executive accused denied the allegations. So that is a contrast to some of the other reactions. What else has been going on? Assassin's Creed Valhalla creative director Ashraf Ismail has stepped down from his role at Ubisoft following allegations of an extramarital affair and sexual misconduct with fans. Quote, I am stepping down from my beloved project to properly deal with the personal issues in my life. The lives of my family and my own are shattered. I am deeply sorry to everyone hurt in this. His announcement comes days after accusations of affairs with younger fans. He's, quote, stepping down. This is a Ubisoft representative talking, stepping down from the project to take a leave of absence. The development team is committed to delivering a great game in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Holy cow.
Wow. Yeah. So that's like 4 or 5 major instances of different women coming forward to accuse very powerful men in the gaming industry. I mean, and this stuff just keeps coming. You know what I mean? Like, by the time this episode drops,
there's a hot take, right now, like 10 minutes ago.
There?
Evo tweeted. Evo said, over the past 24 hours, in response to serious allegations recently made public on Twitter, we have made the first of a series of important decisions regarding the future of our company. Effective immediately, Joey Crueller will no longer be involved with Evo in any capacity. We are currently working towards his complete separation from the company and have relieved him of all of his responsibilities. Going forward, Tony Cannon will act as CEO. In this position, he will take a leadership role in prioritizing greater accountability across Evo, both internally and at our events. There's a little bit more there.
Wow, crazy. Yeah, I mean,
it's CEO just of Evo is gone.
Right. CEOs, leaders, streamers, like these people are rightly being called out for their behavior and their misconduct. And it's kind of coming to a head now, in a way that's actually making a difference and changing things and actually bringing justice to the victims of these things. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much more to. I mean, there is so much more. That
was kind of the start. That was the catalyst. Right. Like that weekend of the June 2020s. 19th, 20th, and 21st of June was just like accusation after accusation. One other thing. Not just gaming industry stuff. Like I said, it branched out into Twitch, and there are actual Twitch streamers that I've started to follow as a result of being on quarantine and can actually listen to Twitch at home. Related to Gary Whitta's Animal Talking, he had guests on, and it has mods. One of the guests was Raquel Lilly, and she's a musician on Twitch. She has come out and spoke against her abuser. And Kate has been a massive platform. That's another Twitch streamer, twitch.tv/Kate. She has like a huge platform of people, mods, constituents in her community that have all been speaking out on their abusers. And so and they've been working to promote these voices and back them up. They're not directly in the gaming industry. They're more of like Twitch streamers that branch out into other things too, like pop culture at large and stuff. Kate's
but they're
more
a part of it, you know what I mean? Like, they're a part of
and
this,
all of this affects. It's fantastic. Like how
it's all tied together. Yeah,
and I'm saying it's fantastic because of the change. These are deep, hard, emotional, like deep seated problems that these women have dealt with their entire lives, and
their entire
they are
professional
scared
lives.
to death to even talk about this stuff, like to bring it up again and to like relive it mentally and emotionally. It is heavy. And so I don't want to make light of any of that. When I say this is fantastic, I only mean it's fantastic in the context of change is happening, and
change
it needs
is happening,
to, and these
justice,
people are feeling emboldened and empowered
done,
and accepted to like speak out. And that's what I think is a fantastic result of the stuff that's happening. So that's what I mean.
Let's talk about, we're going to get now into some sort of breakdown a bit more into the opinion, because we talked about what's happened, and now we want to kind of break down kind of what our thoughts are on it. So this is definitely opinion piece. This is definitely getting more into the, op-ed, if you will, version of our show. So, I just want to talk about reaction then. Like, what should the reaction to this be, from an industry level and from a cultural level? So I want to start by saying the knee-jerk reaction to this kind of thing, and I can even just say from my own experience, when in my college days, when I was less educated about this stuff and coming from a background and a history of, again, being a white male raised in a sexist culture, I have my fair share of sexist ideas. And I'll say that my knee-jerk reaction back in the day would have been, well, this is just a witch hunt and these women are clearly lying. And like, what changed my mind to that point of view was just, not just, I mean, there was some education, there was some good conversations I had with people along the way, and good education that I was exposed to, that changed my mind. But a lot of my mind was just changed by the sheer volume. Like, it's so ridiculous to believe that all these women got together in secret and decided to all come out with the same, with these same corroborating stories on the same people just to bring them down. Like, the amount of level of, Occam's razor comes into effect at some point and says, like, the amount that would go into, the amount of effort and work that would go into that is impossible. Communication and the corroboration and all that stuff would like, someone would crack at one point, you know what I mean? So the fact that this is just like story after story, anecdote after anecdote, evidence after evidence of these misdeeds and whatever, just like, again, the fact that the knee-jerk reaction is these women shouldn't be believed is the exact reason why it's so, like, the logic doesn't hold up, because, like, you have to think, like, what would these women stand to gain for lying versus what they have to lose? And the reality has been for so long that they have to lose their entire careers. Like, they stand to lose more than they gain. What do they gain by this? They may gain their abuser might get some justice, or they might get some justice against their abuser, but they also have to lose their entire career. So to come forward is incredibly brave. You might say, well, they wouldn't get fired for lying. Would they? They get fired for telling the truth sometimes, guys.
Right.
Like, many of these women have had to weigh that. Like, is coming forward on this worth my career? That's just the reality of what it's been, because men don't like to feel threatened, is kind of what this boils down to. And they shouldn't feel threatened by women demanding justice unless they are perpetrators and abusers. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like if any of you are listening to this, which I think most of our listeners are reasonable people who would agree with us on most of these points. But if any of you are listening and your immediate thought is to say, like, well, have people investigated to find out if these women are lying? Like, that's indicative of a sexist mentality, that you, like, your knee-jerk reaction is to disbelieve these women. Because would you do the same if men were coming forward regarding corruption in the gaming industry? You'd probably be inclined to believe them. So maybe
like
you wouldn't.
An article is dropped about, like, crunch at Rockstar, and you're like, yeah, pitchforks, and we need to change, we need to unionize and, like, step up. Like, no issue, right? Just knee-jerk reaction, believe them. Here's the whole thing. No one's really asking, like, what is really going on? But then, a lady comes out.
Let's see their timesheets.
Exactly.
I mean?
Like, you're not doing that, right? So a lady comes out, and I addressed this on our live stream over on twitch.tv. The day the Twitch blackout was supposed to happen, I still streamed, and I explained why. In a nutshell, it's because a blackout on Twitch is not conducive to exposing or providing a safe space to have the conversation about sexism. Like, the idea of this entire Me Too movement is to allow and encourage and make women or anyone of the LGBTQ community speak out in a way that they feel safe and comfortable to do so. And a blackout's not really that. And so I personally did not feel like a blackout was a good response. It's something that might hit Twitch. And the reason for that blackout was because Twitch had made a statement saying, we stand by women and we want to, promote it was legalese and PR speak for like, we support everyone and we're going to take actions. And the idea of the Twitch blackout was to force them to take action by hitting them on their wallet and saying these high profile streamers were going to not stream anymore and cut them into their profits. And it's like, we don't make any money. We're not that. Like, we're a blip. Like, we're a speck of dust on the desk of Twitch. Like, it's nothing. So anyway, I said on that stream, like, I will always believe the victim first. In this situation with sexual abuse allegations or a woman speaking out about being abused, or if it's directed at me, immediately believe them. It's
we're seeing that in some of the cases. The guy that resigned from the online performers group, that was his statement in response to that. I think the guy's name was Omid Dariani. I think it was him.
Yeah.
But he resigned, and his statement was, I don't even remember the event that she's referring to, but I believe that she's telling the truth, so I'm resigning as a result of that. Not saying he's a stand-up guy, not trying to toot his horn. I am saying that in some cases there is a proper response of, I will take responsibility even if I don't remember the incident she's talking about. I do think if there was another example, Fran Marabella III. He's involved in a lot of the Borderlands 3 live streams with Greg Miller from Kinda Funny. Yeah.
A lady had come out from IGN and said that he had made accusations. Again, we're not family friendly. Told a lady that she needed to wear a pull-up bra and said to a different girl that she wasn't pretty enough to be on camera or something along those lines. And he immediately responded with, I don't remember this, but I take that seriously and I completely believe you, and reached out immediately to have conversations about all of this stuff. And like, he was totally another positive example of how to react. It's like,
yeah. And so that's like,
I don't remember this, but let's talk and unpack and like, what can I do to change? And like, what do I need to do here? Because everyone else around Fran was shocked because of how Fran was and his character integrity, and people that knew him were like, this doesn't line up. But you have to believe the women. You have to believe these things in order to promote the conversation. Even if it is a lie, get there by opening the conversation and remove yourself from an abusive position.
Yeah, and we're also seeing awesome. Exactly, and we're seeing that, it may not be happening from all the perpetrators, though we're seeing a little bit of that. But the fact that these companies, some of the bigger companies, some of the bigger streamers are taking this seriously, kind of another good example of how the industry should be responding to this. We should, and you may cry, this is a witch hunt. People are overreacting to these incidents. I think they've been underreacting for far too long. So sure, if we're going to err on either side, let's err on the side of getting abusers out of the industry and coming down hard on them, because the statement that says is ultimately the point that I want to get to, which is just stop treating people that way. You know what I mean? Like whether you're doing it in your community, whether you're doing it in a position of power, whether you're just, or whether you're tempted to say, I didn't get that promotion because this woman or whatever, like, that's a sexist comment. That's a sexist mindset. And it just needs to stop. Like, just act it's ultimately, I think, again, like you said, it's a lot of bad that's coming out in the news right now, but hopefully it leads to a lot of good, and it leads to a lot of change and advancement, because what we need is the streaming industry to go through a growing up phase. That's a hard word to say 5 times fast. And these, streamers and professionals need to start acting like that, acting like professionals. Like, can you imagine in your workplace, like, just casually sexually harassing someone, like making a casual sexual remark towards someone? Like, not only is it unnecessary, but like, you'd get written up at the very least. You'd get pulled into an office and talked to, I imagine. Same thing would happen.
There was a sexist human being. I was on travel. I was in a trailer in the middle of nowhere. And this one guy in a conversation, you talk about like bro dudes, like making jokes and stuff. And I totally didn't. I gave this guy an evil look, and it took everything I had not to. I should have spoke up. I really should have like made it a thing. But he said, we can't even smack women on the ass anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Without being attacked or come down on. Like, and that was his remark. And I was like, what? Yeah. I was so mad.
That's my thing. Is like, that's what I'm trying to get at, is like, not just that comment, but the behavior he's propagating, like he's trying to espouse, is like, how is that necessary? Like, how does that
What world is that okay?
Right. And not just in what world is that okay, but like, what does that gain you in this business and in this industry? Like,
right.
that's ultimately what I'm trying to, communicate is like, there's no, and when it comes to playing games with women, with other people, unless you are in a romantic and consensual relationship already, there's absolutely no reason to talk that way to another person and belittle or diminish someone else just because. So like it, obviously we're not going to dismantle systemic sexism in a month, in a year, in a week,
right.
in a day. It's going to take a while. What I hope to see over the next 10 years, 20 years is we start to address these issues at the like from top to bottom, middle out, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, at all levels of this, like it needs to happen obviously on an industry level. This purge, this reckoning, is great. It's wonderful. It's a first step on a long staircase. You know what I mean? Yep. Like it is the first step in a long journey.
This is not a moment. It's a movement.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that's the Hamilton quote, isn't it?
It is.
I got it.
There you go. You're learning.
This is this is the first step in a long journey, but that journey also there's a parallel staircase that has to also be ascended in order to get to the top. Like we have to go two places, and it has to happen at the cultural level as well. It has to happen on the individual level. People have to start like confronting these things in their own lives and in their own, we have to do it as white males. We have to say, how do we have sexist mindsets? How do we benefit from sexism? You know what I mean? Like, how do we speak out against it? How do we do more to encourage the women in our lives to partake in the thing that brings us joy, so that, more women get their voices heard and get their involvement in this culture and stuff like that. So again, it's a huge undertaking. It's going to be massive, but that's the proper response, as far as I'm concerned, is we have to tackle this from all ends of the spectrum, top, bottom, middle. We need to really tackle this in a way that is educated, informed, and driven by women primarily. It's very, the parallels to the Black Lives Matter movement Black Lives Matter movement are there. You know what I mean? Like, right.
That's why I set the tone and the context before we even talked about this was exactly like, we're already there. Now it's this, I don't want to cheapen either movement, because they're both equally valid, and the industries that they represent extremely. Yep. Yeah. And so I don't want to just say, oh, this is happening because Black Lives Matter started it. No, this is like the same fervor and the same zealousness that's coming out of the industry to rebut against this system, to like really expose and hold people accountable and like really make change happen and progress happen. It's coming from the same like humanitarian root or like justice for humans. Like, this is a human issue. Like, there's nothing else to it. Like, we're human beings. We should be treated as such, justly and fairly, and have the same opportunities and the same paths in our career. And like, we should be treated equally. And right. And we should not go to horrible. We should be able to go to work without someone we're not attracted to and engaging consensually with, like threatening to smack our butts or smacking our butts. You know what I mean? Like everyone should be able to go to work and just have as good a day they can at work without stressors that are not related specifically to that job. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, I can't imagine how stressful it must be to work anywhere, like with the threat of sexual harassment looming over my shoulder. I have had the privilege in my life to just have crappy work days that are just related to crappy work. You know what I mean? Like, not. So yeah, it's just, so that's why, again, we come from a position of privilege. So any straight white males listening to this should ask themselves, how can I be an ally? You know what I mean? That word of allyship has been coming up with in reference to the Black Lives Matter movement, but it applies here too. Like, how can I let women drive the change while supporting them, backing them, and then also figuring out what my own crap is that may be getting in their way. Yeah. So yeah, but cool. We're not trying to like have y'all whip yourselves on the back. You know what I mean? This isn't a penance. This isn't a call to begin to, atone or whatever. It is a call to examine yourself, and is a call to start having these conversations. It may be awkward to bring it up, but have these conversations with your wives, your girlfriends, your mothers, your sisters, your coworkers, and just say, be brave enough to ask the question, like, hey, how
how have I gotten in the way of you feeling safe and comfortable? They may not answer it and be okay if they don't, but like we need to have these conversations even if they're hard. So that's what we're doing right now. But anyways, soapbox, I will get off my soapbox. Do you have any closing thoughts before we let our listeners go?
I just leave people with hope. GameIndustry.biz has an article about the International Game Developer Association. They've responded. I don't really know a lot about this association or what they do, but international game developers, right? So they're kind of a giant entity that affects the gaming industry as a whole. And Renee Gittins released a statement saying that it is imperative that we recognize the failures that led to these situations and come together to create solutions that ensure the game industry is inclusive, supportive, and safe for all developers. Each and every one of us can help our industry be a safer and more inclusive environment. We encourage you to stand up for your fellow developers against any injustices you witness and know that the IGDA and the game industry at large will support you. To that end, Giddens said IGDA is compiling resources that it will make available for game studio leadership to ensure the cultivation of safe, positive company culture. We need to fix this system from the top down to uproot toxic cultures and harassment. For too long, people in power have turned a blind eye to harassment allegations. We must stop this cycle and remove the poison that stops the growth of diversity within our industry. I think a giant spreadsheet that is going out on Google Docs, you can get a link to it, just find it, like it's there. Like, huge list of everyone who's been accused. Don't hire them. That's a great action to take. Don't put them in a position of power. Don't let them be a gatekeeper. And that's a great way to start. It starts you and me, like the common developer with no power can call out when they see it. They can speak up. They can encourage, like you said, an abuser to speak up to their supervisor or to call out the toxicity, like to make the talk about it. We have to get it out in the open and we have to hold these people accountable. I think that's the change. So we talked about all this stuff. The whole entire episode tonight has been about positive stuff that has happened as a result of very negative things that have systemically instilled in our system. So I am hopeful and encouraged by the actions the industry has been taking now because big companies are jumping in. People are being called out by name, and it's not just a silly social media war. Like, this is actually getting ground, and I can't, like, I'm encouraged and I am hopeful.
No, it's I can't help but contrast it to even the cynical penguin here. I can't help but contrast it to the Gamergate and the response there, and just it's so much better this time around because people are actually demanding change, and change is happening. It is a first step, and I hope that the momentum can carry forward, but there's still a long way to go. But it's still hopeful to see that, unlike, the injustice that happened with Gamergate, we're finally getting some justice, and it is sweet. So, but anyways, that is all the time we have. So we're going to wrap up there. Please let us know if you just want to yell at us because we're completely ignorant. If we said something factually incorrect or said something offensive, we do want to hear that feedback as well. So please reach out to us on various social media platforms. And if you liked our show, Termite's going to tell you all the different places where you can find more episodes and more content. So take it away, my good sir.
Yes, we are a weekly video game podcast. We go live every Monday at midnight, and you can find our episodes. The locations of our podcast services are, you can go to 80bitpodsmash.com. It's a landing website with links to iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. All our RSS feed is there. So if you want to catch us on a different platform, you can do that. You can go to iTunes and leave us a review, and it'd be awesome if you did. Our last review was in 2018. It's been 2 years since anybody has left us a review, so be the first person to do it, and I will read your review on the show if you do it. So go do that. Go leave us a review and I'll read it.
We will read any review that is posted. I would say within the next like 5 episodes that drop. We'll read any review that is posted over the next 5 episodes. If we forget one or didn't do one, then you can hit us up.
If you want to make us laugh, if you want to embarrass
me,
embarrass Penguin Man, whatever, go leave us a review and we'll read it. And we'll have to read it because we said we will. So let's go. Let's do that.
Yeah, positive, negative doesn't. The only thing we won't read is anything that's not family friendly. But yeah, we'll read. We'll censor it if we have to. But we will read them whether they're positive, negative. We just want reviews. So do it and we'll read it.
Go do that.
Looking forward to it.
We also stream every single week on Wednesday evenings at 8 o'clock Eastern Time at twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. So you can go there, subscribe, follow us so you'll be notified when we go live. And we also have social media platforms. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a subreddit. It's all 80-bit Podsmash, 80-bit Podsmash. And we have a Discord server that's also up if you want to live chat with our community and us, interact with us there. And there's a link to our Discord in all of our show notes, as well as the Facebook posts all have links in our webpage. So go check us out.
Absolutely. So next week we pushed it back a week. We'll do the developer profile on Sucker Punch in honor of Ghost of Tsushima releasing 3 days before that. And so that's when you will get that breakdown, that episode. So we will see you then.
See you next week.